Hello everyone and welcome back to another edition of Indie Book Review, where today I am not reviewing an indie book, I am reviewing a traditionally published book, one that was nominated for the Giller Prize and was the runner-up for Canada Reads. I mean, those are some pretty impressive feats. What book is this? If you've read the title of the video, it is Son of a Trickster by Eden Robinson. And I'm going to straight out get into this and state I did not like this book. I didn't like it at all. I really did not like this book. Especially the first 2/3 of it. The first 2/3 of that book can just fuck right off. Most of it wasn't even needed anyway. But let's get into this, shall we? So, the plot. There's this kid, Jared. He's on this native reserve, and he's basically your typical high school kid. Like, he's kind of an asshole, but, high schooly. Pretty much the first 2/3 of this book is just him meeting this girl, Sarah, who he ends up falling in love with, and she's kind of a bitch to him, but also really nice to him at the same time. She's kind of one of those. His mom is a drunk and a drug addict. Everyone around him is a drug addict, except for this old couple where the one lady has cancer and the other guy's got Alzheimer's. His dad is a drug addict who left his mom when he was a kid and is taking money from him. Jared makes pot cookies as kind of a means of making some money and has some people helping him out on the side with it. And sprinkled throughout, there's these little bits of fantasy pieces. In fact, there's three moments of any particular fantasy moment, and for the first 2/3 of this book. And then you find out that Jared is the son of a trickster god, and his mom's a witch, and the girl that he's dating is a witch. She just doesn't know it and isn't ready for that sort of thing yet. And he starts seeing ghosts, and all this other crazy stuff starts happening. And it's the epitome of going from 0 to 100 in 3 seconds. It's like, holy shit, what is going on now? The plot is a problem, but it's also not at the same time. Like, it saves itself right in the nick of time, but it's also a kind of a case of too little too late. There definitely should have been a lot more fantasy elements, or at least a lot more fantasy teasing sprinkled throughout the book, not just a few spots here and there. There definitely should have been way more to this. And I'm not even against magical realism and saying, it should have just been full bore fantasy. No. The entire plot could have stayed right where it is and would have been fine if there would have been more moments like that. More moments where birds are talking to him. More moments of this guy saying, I'm your dad. But there just isn't. The most we get is a voice talking in his head, which, could be him, could be something else. I mean, you figure out what's going on later on. But it's just, like I said, too little too late. So plot, I'm going to actually be nice and give it a 3 out of 5. And that's being generous. That is actually being generous with this book. Characters. I hated every single character in this book. Every single character is a bad person. With the exception of the old couple, but even then. The old guy, he's got Alzheimer's, he's hardly in the book. And when he is, he's just doing things that people with Alzheimer's do, just being generally fairly confused as to what's going on and thinks that other things are going on. It's actually kind of tragic in what Alzheimer's is. And the old lady who has cancer, she kind of becomes a bit of a bitch to Jared. And she herself even states that she wasn't actually being the person that he deserved her to be. He didn't deserve what she was doing to him. That doesn't make it right. That doesn't mean that she's any better of a person for it. And as for the rest of the characters, if they're not drug addicts or drunks, they're just generally mean people. Even Jared is an unlikable character. Like, he's a sarcastic ass, and don't get me wrong, I have no problem with sarcastic characters. Hell, I used to have a joke where I'd say that I spoke sarcasm as a second language. But there's a way to do sarcasm where you're not being a about it. Like, Jared is just mean with his sarcasm. He's mean to everyone with it, which makes it really hard to like Jared in any capacity. Which, with a book like this, I expected so much more. I expected so much better. So I am going to actually have to give characters a 2 out of 5. And I'm only giving it a point because they are very well written characters. They do actually have their own voices, and you can definitely know who's talking at any given moment. That's the only point that I can possibly give, is they're well written characters. I didn't like any of them. The writing. The writing is what you would expect for a Giller Prize nominee and the runner-up for Canada Reads. It's fantastic writing. Like, just straight through, fantastic writing. My only real gripe, and the only reason it's losing 2 points, straight up, this lost 2 points because of this. She decided to try and write teenager speak, which not only dates itself, and it's dated for the year that it was published. It really just comes off as super cringy and really hard to get into and read. If she'd have gone for a bit more of a neutral way of speaking, then I definitely could have got into this. But it's kind of like somewhat hippie, somewhat social justice-y, somewhat all sorts of different chopped up sort of different styles. Like they say, like they text TTFN and TTYL, which I don't think I've seen anybody type in 5 years or more. Like, it's just not something people do anymore. I think had Jared been a little bit older in the book, she could have gone, she probably would have gone for a bit more of a neutral way of speaking than trying to write teenager, which just doesn't work. And for that, it loses 2 points. Other than that, the writing is absolutely fantastic, and you have absolutely nothing bad to say about it. So yeah, the rating is a 3 out of 5. Imagination and research. Holy shit, does this save the book. So, I'm one of those people who listens to CBC radio. If for no other reason than general radio stations just kind of irritate the hell out of me, because I can only listen to the same songs over and over and over and over and over and over and over again before finally just getting bored and pissed off over it. And because I drive all day, because that's what I do, I deliver auto parts, the radio is kind of what I got. And with that, I tend to listen to more CBC radio. So and with that, they have a whole segment for books, and I have actually listened to Eden Robinson list off the research that she did with this, and some of the specialized and almost cultural sort of research that she had to do with this. And holy crap. And even the imagination in and of itself, just a lot of imagination went into this book. There's nothing bad that I can say about the imagination. Like, she gave it her all. And the research is top notch. So I gotta give that, at the very least, a 5 out of 5. It's the only 5 out of 5 I'm giving this book, but at least it got 1. And the ending. Well, you guys all know that it's not a 5 out of 5. It is actually the second highest point that this book gets. Because like I said, the first 2/3 of this book I really did not like and had a very hard time getting into. Once things started to pick up, my God, it actually became a good book. It actually became something that I was starting to enjoy. Like I said before, it was too little too late, but it's still something. Okay, so I'm actually not even going to worry about doing a spoilery thing. Just spoilers from here on out. And yeah. So basically, Jared realizes that, or Jared finds out that he's the son of a trickster god. Some otter monsters want him for some reason. They think he's a magic user, which, despite being the son of a trickster god and the son of a witch, he's incapable of actually using magic. Which, weird. He gets saved. Everyone's all happy until, his girlfriend has to move and he ends up losing everything and decides to go sober. Which, that's pretty awesome. He decides to go sober. And everyone starts to leave him because he's going sober. So he's kind of the lone sober man now. And that's where it ends. I would have liked a bit more of a resolution to this. I know that this is book one of a trilogy, but I would have liked to have had at least a little bit more of a resolution, a little bit more, like one more chapter or a short epilogue, just kind of detailing what's going to happen next or what to expect for the next book. I mean, not that it really matters. I'm not going to read the next two books because I really just didn't like this one at all. Far from that, the ending just does kind of save the book. This book probably would have gotten way, way, way lower had it not been for the strong ending that it got, despite not having as much of a resolution as I would have liked. So, all in all, the ending gets a 4 out of 5. It's a good ending. It's not the best ending. It's not as good as it could have been, but it's better than what I'd expected. So all in all, Son of a Trickster gets 6 out of 10. And honestly, it was the amount of imagination and research and the ending that saved this book. And even then, the ending was a bit of a generosity on my part too. But whatever. 6 out of 10. Still not an awful review. The book is not unreadable by any means, but I definitely expected way, way more for something that was a nominee for the Giller Prize and the runner-up for Canada Reads. I expected so much more. But I guess you can't win them all, right? So, this is all I got for you guys. If there's any books that you would like me to review, let me know in the comments, and we'll go from there. Have a good one, folks.